Hi there everyone, my name is Helenique and we're talking about addiction today. This is a subject I think is very serious in the world that we're living in because really all of us have a varying kind of way of supporting our addictive behavior. This means that we make choices and we make decisions, and sometimes very unconsciously we are triggered or driven to do certain things, behave in certain ways that are actually quite destructive for us. This is what really defines an addiction, something that we do repeatedly that is actually destructive to our health or our well-being. And so in science we see a really huge breakthrough on the way that addiction is being considered now as a disease, no longer as a moral failure or a lack of judgment. It's way more complex than that. And when we go into neuroscience, we see that there really are very profound ways that the brain can be hijacked by a substance, and actually the neuroplasticity of the brain is interrupted because there is certain neural pathways that are actually being tampered with and damaged in the way that they then connect us to conscious, healthy decision making. So there are some very interesting findings in a research study that was published in the National Geographic, and it actually talks to us about the whole new discovery in science of addiction as a type of illness that needs to be treated rather than judged or misinterpreted as just a lack of judgment. It's really way more complex than that, and analysts and psychologists work extensively to understand the addictive impulses that people have. But really only now the very instrumental study, which was done by a cognitive psychologist together with a second person and a third, actually did the study on a new style of brain stimulation. Now, if you know anything about my work, you'll know that I work very closely with an institute in America which actually works very similarly in the way that this study is talking about, to actually deal with certain parts of the brain and train these areas of the brain to reach more advanced ways of functioning. And when we have symptoms, problematic behaviors, meltdowns, frustration, maybe very specific psychological disorders or all kinds of pathological symptoms that are interrupting our health and well-being, we do need to look at ways to work on the neuropsychological level. In this study on addiction, a man called Galimberti teamed up with another psychologist called Bocci and another Alberto Terraneo, neurocognitive psychologists, and they actually recruited a group of cocaine addicts. And very interesting results here in this study. Really, there were 16 of the addicts that underwent 1 month of a new technique called TMS, but actually this form of brain stimulation is called transcranial magnetic stimulation, which really focuses on a specific area of the brain that is responsible for inhibiting behavior. And it's in the prefrontal cortex of the brain, and it was believed by Galimberti, who first had this idea, that triggering the stimulation onto that area of the brain in people who are serious addicts, who are abusing substances and maybe even well past other addiction treatment systems. They've tried many types of rehabilitation, and triggering that area actually will start to vanish the interest in the substance, because this very specific neural pathway gets damaged during addiction. But with the brain stimulation, they are able to trigger very different decision-making systems. So in the study, the 16 cocaine addicts were given the TMS method, this TMS form of brain stimulation, together with a few other treatment styles, whereas 13 of the people in the study, 13 cocaine addicts, received the traditional care, which included medication for anxiety and depression. Fascinating, by the end of the trial, the 11 people in the stimulation group were drug-free, but only 3 people in the other group were. And this then shows to us that, in fact, the study, which was published in the European Neuropsychopharmacological magazine, January 2016. The issue there prompted a lot of publicity, but also really triggers some interesting thought for us, because if we understand that in our lives we have certain behaviors that we want to lessen or decrease or maybe even stop altogether, we do need to know how far we have damaged that neural pathway.